Senator Warren.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Ranking Member Alexander, welcome, Dr. Hamburg. It's good to see you here today. So the CDC estimates that more than 2 million people develop antibiotic-resistant infections in the United States every year. And there's increasing scientific evidence that the overuse of antibiotics in animal agriculture is contributing to the rise in antibiotic resistance. The more we use an antibiotic, the less effective it becomes at fighting resistant infections. And if we continue to use 30 million pounds of antibiotics in food animals every year, which is about 4 times as much as we use in people, we're likely to have a lot more resistant infections and fewer antibiotics that work when we need them. So the FDA's most recent guidance documents on this subject concluded that the use of antibiotics in animal agriculture for production purposes to promote growth in animals, I'll quote you here, may contribute to antibiotic resistance. But the FDA says that antibiotic use for disease prevention is all right. And you've asked pharmaceutical companies who sell antibiotics to animal growers to voluntarily withdraw their FDA approvals for those uses. Now, we've heard preliminary reports that all 27 companies that manufacture animal antibiotics agreed to comply with this directive and will submit supplemental new drug applications to revise their labels. Surely the removal of production uses from the market is a good first step, and I'm hopeful that this is going to lead to decreasing use of antibiotics. But the FDA's guidance doesn't guarantee the prudent use of antibiotics in the context of disease prevention. Even with every animal drug company agreeing to comply with the FDA's most recent guidance, there could still be a lot of antibiotic use in animals that is ostensibly for disease prevention, but is still far more than necessary and will continue increasing resistance. So how will these guidance and the FDA's review of labeling changes ensure that we're reducing the antibiotics use in agriculture and decreasing the risks of perpetuating resistance?
Well, thank you for the question. It's such an important topic, and it's actually one that, on a personal level, I've been working on for most of my career. And I really am encouraged by some of the steps that we are taking now, and I think they will make a real and an enduring difference. As you noted, we put forward the guidance asking for companies, both innovator manufacturers and generics, to show us how, over a period of time, they will remove the products for the growth promotion purposes, what we call non-judicious use of the antibiotics. We've been very encouraged. The companies, there was a 90-day period for them to report to us their plans for how they would voluntarily comply. And that just closed, and we've gotten preliminary indications of very full participation. We'll obviously review what they have put in writing to make sure that we are comfortable, and we'll work with them if we don't think it adequately addresses. With respect to your question about how do we ensure, though, that these antibiotics don't continue to be used inappropriately, although not targeted for the growth promotion, for prevention purposes, we're also going to be moving the oversight of the use of these products to the supervision of a veterinarian, which isn't the case now. So it'll be much more like what you're familiar with a prescription from a doctor and the release of a drug. The same will be true with veterinary oversight of the use of these products for the preventive and treatment purposes. And of course, there will always be a need for antibiotics to treat animals for important illnesses they may have, and also there is a role for prevention, but we want to make sure that it's appropriate and adequately supervised, and especially that is of importance when they are antibiotics of importance for human medical needs as well.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm running out of time here, so I'll just make the note about the use, moving this over so that veterinarians have to prescribe. Again, I think it's a very good first step, but veterinarians are permitted to prescribe for anything that's on-label use. And so long as they are permitted to use it effectively for preventive disease, that means there's the possibility of just continuing to keep these drugs out in circulation, keeping them out there all the time, even with the approval of a veterinarian. And I'm just concerned. I'll submit the rest of my questions for the record so we can go back to this in some detail, including how you're going to track.
And I'm happy to discuss it further, and we will be able to work in oversight of the prescribing practices of veterinarians in ways that may be reassuring to you.
And I appreciate that and just want to encourage you along these lines. Thank you very much,
Sure.
Dr. Hamburg. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.